Hello, hope you're well, and welcome to the podcast. I'm very lucky today to be joined by the one and only Beverley Lum. Beverley, thank you for making time to come on today.
You're so welcome, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on. So, for those of you who haven't seen you on social media at all, give us a quick 30-second CV, who you are and what you're about.
Okay, so I'm currently with the leadership team at Keller Williams Plus. We're based in Essex. My speciality in the business is branding, marketing, business structure, business coaching, that kind of thing. Historically, I'm an investor. I have been a real estate agent as well. And I've been in the industry about, well, over 30 years without saying too much more. That gives away how old I am.
We'll say no more on that, no problem at all. So, the bit we're going to really zoom in on today is the brand strategy side of things. So, let's start there, shall we? So, why in 2024 slash coming on to 2025 very soon is brand strategy important for estate agents?
No, Chris, I think brand strategy is important for every single organization of every single size. Um, if a business doesn't know who their target market is and who they are as an operation and what it is they're trying to achieve, they're directionless. But particularly in this industry for estate agents, the high street is our historical model. And so people join an established brand and start to operate. So individuals that are coming out of that model, or individuals that are now starting to join the wave of independent realtors in the UK, I think we're about 5% of independent realtors throughout the UK right now. Of course, you could be an amazing estate agent, but it doesn't mean that you're natural when it comes to business. And certainly at the very, at ground roots, you have to understand who your audience are, how you need to serve them, how you differentiate yourself from, as you say, what can be a saturated market and what makes you stand out. And your brand strategy is really identifying who you are and how you serve your audience. Because, I tell everyone, tell all of our agents, nobody cares who Beverley Lum is. In this age of digital media and scrolling and fast-paced, media and news coming at you and being fed, we're pretty impatient. And so you need to understand who your audience are, and all they're interested in really is how you can solve their problems and what you do to benefit them.
Yeah.
Nobody cares how wonderful you are. They want to know what you can do for them. And you need to uncover that at the very early stages, or you will keep tripping up and hitting brick walls.
Do you think agents see that as secondary? So do you think they kind of launch their estate agency business and go, great, my clientele is anybody with a house in my local town sort of thing. And then over time they evolve into that? And do you think estate agents kind of miss that chapter and kind of try and catch up with it later on?
I absolutely think they miss it. I think a lot of businesses miss it. Small, medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, maybe don't think about that piece. If you don't come from a sales and marketing background, but you're very entrepreneurial and you have this wonderful business idea, you kind of learn on your feet. You learn as you go along. And most of the time you get most of your knowledge from those mistakes and hitting the floor and having to restart, pull your bootstraps up and go again. So I think it's a mistake that most entrepreneurs make when they're starting out. If they don't have that training up front, they don't have that knowledge up front, or they don't have a good business coach and advisor and coaches them how, it works, what each step of building a business is. We're very lucky that we're able to do that, within Keller Williams, because we've got seasoned, entrepreneurs and business coaches, so that our agents are in very good hands.
So if you were an agent listening into this and sort of shrugging your shoulders slightly on this and going, this all sounds a bit foreign to me, kind of, where do I start? What would be the answer to that question? Where should they start with that sort of situation?
You mean it from the brand strategy point of view?
Absolutely. So they were sat
Yeah.
there going, my brand strategy is anybody with a house in my town. Where would their next step be from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I actually did one of my sessions yesterday and it's very condensed. It only took about 2.5 hours. Generally, it takes about half a day. That kind of knowledge takes work. And I tell all of our agents before they come on the Zoom, make sure you're ready for this. You've got your sugar, you've got your water. It's going to be cardio. And you do need someone to hold your hand through it. It doesn't come instinctively. And you may be working in a demographic where you do know your audience, but you can't, as you say earlier, put the links together. So the first thing you want to do is really peel those layers back. So who are my demographic? How old are they? What do they do? What kind of houses do they live in? Are they renting? Do they own? What do they do for a living? Where do they hang out? Where can I find them? How do I reach them? You want to understand the language that your target audience speaks. So, for example, if you have an agent starting out and they're in an area that maybe is low income, has a lot of social housing, there's no point leaflet dropping in a social housing area because councils don't sell homes, right? So it's finding your demographic. So the larger part of your demographic might be in social housing. So your target audience is elsewhere. That's just one example. Is your demographic largely 4-bedroom detached homes for people that are starting to downsize? Do your demographic generally stay in the area, or buyers coming in and owners moving out? What's the movement? What's the life circle? Sorry about that.
And
So you need to understand who they are. And then the second part of that is understanding their pain points. What's important to them? What do they want? So you understand your demographic are largely first-time buyers, for instance. Okay, their pain points will generally be they've never done this before. They need advice. They need the hand holding. They need to be looked after. And then you can speak to their pain points. Across all of your marketing, everything you say, everything you do can be talking to that first-time buyer and speaking to the fears, the hopes, the dreams, their pain points.
And how often would you review this? Because let's say, for example, I launched my estate agency business today, and I thought to myself, I'm going to be the first-time buyer expert for whatever town I'm living in. And then over time, I found myself getting dragged into more and more of like bungalows, for example. At what point would you go, actually, I'm getting more traction and more saturation. I'm getting a better marketplace with the bungalow guys than the first time buyer guys. Would you review that every like quarter, every 6 months, every year to go, actually, where is my core marketplace as it stands today?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Sometimes you think you know your demographic, and actually your audience come to you. Sometimes the person that you are trying to relate to doesn't relate to you, someone else relates to you. And that's the whole, wanting your audience to know, like, and trust you. It's how you come across. And that's also a shift in market. You can be working in an area that suddenly starts to gentrify, or you may have an aging population, or you might be working in a particular area that perhaps is more affordable for first-time buyers. And so you're starting to see a wave of young professionals, city professionals, starting to move into an area historically which was low income, but is starting to be gentrified by that wave of affordability moving in. It's closer to London, it's closer to, it wouldn't be their first choice, but that's where they can afford, because the cost of buying a home right now is pretty high. So you absolutely have to have your finger on the pulse and be sensitive to who you're surrounded by, and be communicating with your audience, and be open-minded and ready to shift, particularly in challenging markets like growing right now.
And when you're looking for your sort of demographic, your niche, your sort of brand strategy sort of direction with the company, would you be looking at it from a seller's point of view, from a buyer's point of view? Because, for example, if you were selling, let's go very stereotypical here. Let's say, for example, you say that your niche is elderly people in bungalows, for example, but obviously you want your marketing also to appeal to the guys who have 4-bedroom houses who might want to downsize the bungalows. So where do you kind of put your focus on that? Because it's quite hard to sort of be everything for everybody effectively. So you can't be kind of Mr. First Time Buyer and Mr. OAP Bungalow. So how do you sort of
Absolutely.
balance
Some
that?
people be in a demographic which is very spread out. You might be in a demographic that the population is aged very steadily between 35 and 65. And so you may have 3 target audiences. But the important thing is that you're aware of it.
No,
That everything that you put out is targeted to one or other of those demographics, that you're not just throwing the proverbial at the wall and hoping it will stick, and you've got a scattergun approach. That's another part of knowing your audience, understanding, okay, I move up and down the food chain, and I understand each part of that food chain, and it's all part of the development of my business. Absolutely.
Is it a case of, I know it's very stereotypical, people go, my ideal client is Bob. Bob is 55 years old. Bob plays tennis twice a week. Bob has 2 kids at the local school. Is it that sort of granular detail you're looking for here?
Yeah, I mean, look, what your ideal client is doesn't mean you're the ideal estate agent to the person who's out there. So I think we need to move away from who your ideal client is to serving the audience that you happen to be sitting in the middle of. So we teach our agents, you want to be really focusing on the nearest 5,000 rooftops on your doorstep. Your ideal client might be 15 miles away. So you can't build a business on who you would like to purchase from you. In this situation, you have to serve the audience that you have in front of you, and it's understanding their needs. So your avatar client, you're building a picture of your avatar client, because your ideal client becomes the person standing in front of you, not an idealized, version in front of you. Yes, I'd like to sell £4 million houses every day of the week, but that's not what I've got in my demographic.
I think
And
it's
that's where you have to uncover it.
I think it's interesting because I'd always see it as sort of swimming with the tide versus swimming against the tide. Because if you find
Absolutely.
a demographic and niche that appreciates what you do and appreciates your services, then great, you kind of gain that marketplace quite easily. Whereas if you think to yourself, I want to be Mr. Bungalow sort of thing, kind of die hard, it can be you're not actually getting traction from those people. You're like swimming against the tide. You're trying to push your message as much as you possibly can on these people that it just doesn't resonate with. When you've got people over the other side who are like, yeah, we love what you're doing, we love all your branding and marketing, and actually we work with you really well. So I think it's quite an important thing there. I actually had a conversation with one of my clients a while ago who has a high-end estate agency, so deals with multi-million pound houses generally, but over the last year or so, that's got a little bit, I'd say cheaper. It's all relative. So anywhere from sort of 800,000 to 1.5 million. And we had a conversation where I said, literally, if I got rid of your high-end houses today, the business wouldn't look any different. All the stuff you've got for sale or looks like it's going to go under offer and your pipeline is that all that stuff in that marketplace that we're not actually aiming for, particularly the high-end stuff that we ideally want to have, we're not actually getting any traction on in any way, shape, or form. So let's actually just nudge the business slightly into a line with where we're actually getting the most traction in the business, because that's actually where all the money is and all your listings are coming from.
Absolutely. You have to know your market, and you have to keep your finger on the pulse, and you have to read the room. You can't blindly walk through your business journey, with the shutters on. As you've quite rightly pointed out, right now in this market and in my demographic, I would like to be selling houses over £500,000. And there's a lot of them in my demographic. That is the larger demographic, is over £500,000 4-bed detached homes. However, they're taking a long time to sell.
Sure.
The price point that are selling in my category are probably 350 up. So they're the ones right now in this particular climate. I have to reshift. I have to lower my expectations. I have to work hard to connect with slightly different buyers and sellers. But you have to be sensitive and understand what's going on in your marketplace.
And I guess you need alignment in your brand. Is that probably the best way of phrasing it? So everything from your sort of your logo through to your company colors, to the way you talk to people, to the way you act, all this sort of stuff has to be in alignment with regard to that message and that core marketplace you're trying to get into or working with.
Absolutely. You can't market an Audi brand to a Waitrose customer, and vice versa. If you've got a very luxury brand and your dream is to have a luxury brand, and as you say, be targeting properties that are over £1 million, but you're in a very stale market, and you need, your brand may not appeal, or that vendor that has a house up at £600,000 may find you unapproachable. They may feel that you're not the kind of estate agency that wants their business.
Yeah.
So you have to be flexible.
So my partner's launched her own business a little while ago, and she met with a friend of ours who is a copywriter and in the sort of the brand strategy sort of space. And they had a meeting before she launched her business. And afterwards, how'd the meeting go? How'd it go? What'd you cover? And she was like, oh, we spent the last couple of hours talking about our company voice and our company tone. I was like, what on earth does that mean? And she was like, the way we talk about things, the way we communicate, the sort of style of our messaging, when we talk to people, what we say, whether we make jokes, whether it's serious, whether it's strict. And I was like, okay, cool. But it's, fair play to her. It is stuff that has worked really well in their business. And there's consistency from start to finish in every communication, because that voice is the same from start to finish.
Absolutely. I mean, I can give you some more examples, on, for instance, that strategy session I had yesterday. I had agents from all different regions and demographics. One of our agents is on the coast at Brighton, for instance, and we were working through it. Tell me about your client. And, they have money, there's disposable cash, they like to garden, X, Y, and Z. And I said, okay, so what you're telling me actually is that you have a very diverse demographic and your audience probably want to work with people that are quite liberal, for instance. So again, you can't be tone deaf. You can't be having very opposed views or be too vocal about things that your audience are sensitive to. You need to understand, again, I emphasize this over and over, what is important to them and what are their pain points, because it's not about you. It's not about how wonderful you are, it's how you solve your clients' problems.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, we are problem solvers as a business, and that's our core goal. So
Yeah.
let's transport this sort of over to the world of social media. So how does social media play a role in the branding of an estate agency today?
I mean, social media has been fantastic for free marketing, and having your voice heard. We all know years ago, the nearest you got to the estate agent until you were doing a transaction was a leaflet through the door and having a look in the window. So you didn't have personal branding, really. It was difficult to create a personal brand without shaking somebody's hand.
Mm.
Now we have a voice. Now we've got, video. We can speak to our message authentically and reach our customer directly within seconds. So it's a huge opportunity, which I find that a lot of estate agents aren't using, actually. And of course, estate agents that are in corporates or on the high street, quite often, those brands do not encourage individualism.
Mm.
They want to keep their branding in-house so the agent doesn't have a voice and it doesn't become personalized. When you're an independent realtor, you have a unique opportunity to build your personal brand. And with Keller Williams, we're agent first. It's not Keller Williams boards everywhere. It's the agents' boards. It's their photo. It's their social media. It's all of their platforms. And it gives them a unique opportunity to really let people see who they are, their personality, and allow the audience to connect with them in a very real way.
So you've segued me quite nicely to my next question there. And so how do you think agents should balance the messaging between that personal brand side of things versus the company brand side of things? So how much should it be it's Chris Webb and how much should it be at Keller Williams, by the way?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit there, Chris, but I think I've got the gist of it. I mean, we say here that brands don't sell homes, people do.
Yeah.
Your brand doesn't go inside a house and do a market valuation, a person does. And you look someone in the eye and they either take to you, like what you've got to say, connect with you, or they don't, whether you're working for a brand or you're not. It's that interpersonal relationship. And I think brands can be pretty short-sighted on giving very talented employees the opportunity to grow and to flourish and to actually build their brand even further. I'm, for instance, very lucky to have come into Keller Williams and had a free reign. But a lot of corporates maybe are fearful of that. They think, we get a lot of staff turnover on the high street. Let's be fair about it. Salaries, etc., for various reasons, so many that we already know of. Retention can be difficult. And I think employers look at that in a fearful way and they worry about employers maybe taking business with them. When we act on our fears rather than, okay, what good could come out of this? It can be quite short-sighted. As entrepreneurs, as employers, as employees, I think as a culture, we need to think more about what if everything went right instead of worrying about if everything went wrong. And if you're allowed talented people to do their best work, you can only benefit and they will stay with you because they've got that flexibility and they're allowed to grow. And they will bring you ultimately more business, I believe.
I mean, I have a strong idea about where the answer to this question might go, but do you think the large corporate agents hold back their staff from doing personal branding stuff, let's call it, because they're worried that they're going to get too strong a personal brand and they'll become stronger than the actual office themselves?
You can have an employee that is speaking to their audience and has the flexibility to get on social media to build your brand with using their name, using their connections in their network, using the audience that they have built up because they've worked for you for 5-10 years. Why not allow them to speak on your behalf? They're going to people's homes and speak on your behalf. Why don't you allow them to reach thousands of people instead of one? If you've got a great lister in there that nails it every single time, why are you just allowing them to do that one handshake at a time? If they have that talent, let them go out there and reach the masses. it's a win-win for everybody.
Oh, I like that a lot. So if you're an estate agent listening to this and you want to get your brand across on social media, what sort of content should be your go-to for social media?
Again, it's all about your audience. So it's understanding those pain points. So stage 3 of that the branding session that I do again is a competitive analysis. And that's how you largely find out what your audience's pain points are. So let's think about if you're in a saturated market with other estate agents or you're not. What are those top 3 or 4 brands doing? Really well and not so great. The conversations you're having with your community, whether it's family or neighbours, what experiences have they told you about those brands? Is it, for instance, we hear it a lot, bad communication. I don't get updates. I don't know what's going on. Or the person that came to value the house, I've never seen them again. I never speak to the same person, regularly. It's always someone new. Or someone came to do the viewing and they've never seen the house before and it wasn't very professional. These are kind of generic complaints that we all hear, let's be honest, over and over again. So if you're an independent realtor and they are pain points that you are never going to have because you structure your business in such a way that you're doing all the viewings, your client can always reach you within office hours and out of office hours, and that they will never be handed over to somebody else in the business. They're always going to be able to reach you and you're the person doing the viewing. Talk about that, because they're the niggles that your audience, it really irritates them. And that's where the relationship falls down. So when you're doing your marketing, when you're putting that message out, whatever platform it is, hard copy, digitally, socially, whatever, talk to those pain points. I'm the agent you'll always be able to reach. You'll never have to deal with anyone else in the office. You'll always have a professional person doing the viewing, and that will be me. Talk to those pain points. But again, it goes back to who are your demographic, what's important to them, and how can you benefit them? How do you solve their problems? Find out what their problems are, what other people are doing rightly and wrongly, and speak to those gaps.
And I suppose the easiest way to find out the problems your clients are experiencing at any time is to talk to them and to say, whether that's clients who are on the market with yourself or the market with other agents, and say, not necessarily with even regard to your service, but say, when you're moving house, what was the most stressful part of it? Oh, well, the most stressful part was tidying my house up and getting the kids all ready to move out of the house for the weekend viewing sort of thing. If you find out those problems, you can get a solution to it. But if you don't know the problems in the first place, then you're just guessing at best.
In answer to your original question, it's telling your audience that. Never put your client in a position where they have to ask you the question. Make sure you know what the question is going to be and you already have the answer, and that you would have already told them the answer to that problem before they highlight it. If you're speaking to your audience's problems day in, day out across all of your marketing, all of your socials, they already will start to trust you and know that you're going to deliver beyond their expectations.
I like that a lot. And I think that's the same thing with things like presenting fee, for example. So, for example, if a client says to you, what is your fee on a market appraisal? You've probably done something a little bit wrong, because you should be going, my fee is, and this is why my fee is what it is, sort of thing. So actually they're asking you the question, you should come forward with it already and actually kind of come forward with the answer to that question before it even came up.
It's like being an employee. As an employee, you should never be in a position where your boss has said, what did you do today? As a business owner, as an employee, and walking through life, you should always be in front of your business. Nobody should ever have to ask you a question. They should know exactly who you are, what you're doing, what you can achieve, and what you're going to do for them up front. No one should ever be chasing you.
Cool. So, question for you. So how can estate agents create content that not only gets engagement with audience, because obviously it's nice to get likes and comments and all that sort of stuff as well, but also how can they use that so that it also gets leads into their business? Because obviously I don't think anyone's posting on social media because they particularly love posting on social media or love standing in front of the camera. So how can agents use their social media account to actually generate the market appraisals, listings, sales, etc. for their business?
If you look, most of us don't like being in front of the camera. It's something that you have to get used to in the era that we're in. You have to get used to being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. If you want to be a business owner, you want to achieve certain objections in life, you do it by going through a whole world of pain. Because if this was easy, everybody would be doing it. And it's through mistakes, through trial and error, and through putting yourself in positions that you really don't want to be in, that you'll succeed and you become stronger. It's like muscle memory. So if you don't like doing videos, then start practicing at home and get to the point where you don't care. I think you can tell by my appearance today, I no longer care. You know, when I started doing videos a few years ago, it'd be, you know, is there a hair out of place? Is everything perfect? And now it's no makeup, hair scoofed up, and no longer care. You have to get to that bit where you understand that solving your clients' problems and delivering your service is much more important than your ego and your vanity. This cannot be an ego journey. If you're starting a business because of ego, you're probably going to fail.
I should point out at this stage that when Beverley joined the video call today, I was indeed checking my hair out before the video started. So I'll throw myself under the bus there before anyone else gets a chance to do it. So we've got a good content strategy then around sort of, or ideally want to have a good content strategy around sort of generating leads into our business as well. So talk us through sort of a strategy that agents can put in place that doesn't need a big budget at all. So they might need, I don't know, a clip-on microphone and a gimbal, for example. But what's a good content strategy that agents can have in place that's going to generate them likes, shares, and eventually leads them into their business, and that sort of knowing, liking, and trusting element as well?
Yeah, again, you're going to create content that speaks to your audience. You know where the pain points are, and you're going to talk about it. You talk about it in the coffee shop. You talk about it on socials. You talk about it in the restaurant. You talk about it every. You know, you need to market the hell out of your business like your life depends on it, because guess what, it does, and that includes socials. So it's really just getting familiar with all of the social media platforms, and they are very different, and they have slightly different audiences. So you need to have that variation that will appeal and go across most platforms. So obviously LinkedIn has 9 billion users. That's the biggest yellow pages for business there'll ever be, probably. You need to be using it. It needs to be your Bible. You don't want to, a lot of people don't use LinkedIn. You don't want to be in a position where somebody's looked you up on LinkedIn and hasn't used you because you don't have any information there. You need, at the very least, your landing page is optimized. People know who you are, what you do, why you do it, and how it benefits them. Even if you're not posting every day, allow yourself to be found. And I think if you've got good content, it will resonate across all social media platforms. So I train our agents to start with Instagram, actually. And Instagram, a lot of people post on Instagram unintentionally, which is great. As long as you're creating content, that's great. But once you get used to putting yourself out there and taking a risk, you really need to start optimizing your Instagram, because we're also in this digital age, it's all about aesthetics. And although I'm telling everybody you need to get into the place where you don't care about how you look, in order to get those clicks, you need to be making visual content that makes someone want to click on that image and listen to what you've got to say, read your caption or read your blog. We're in an age of, you know, everyone's trying to look absolutely beautiful. Staging is beautiful. Homes are beautiful. Professional photography. Everyone's doing everything they can to make sure that that listing stands out. So you want to be creating, where possible, content that is appealing, that people are clicking on it. Whether that's a thumbnail or top, or, you know, a colorful background, or an interesting label on your screen, you want to make something that's clickable. So I say to the agents, start with Instagram. Learn how to use the Instagram. You know, you want to be doing a rotation of content on either a 5, 7, or 9 day rotation. I teach our agents to start with 5 days. Make it easy. Decide what kind of content you're going to post on a 5-day week. So one piece of content might be you doing a video about how you can solve people's problems. Another day, it might be a highlight of a property. The third day might be answering your vendors or clients' questions. So just decide on what those 5 pieces of content are. Remember, always go back to your brand strategy and what your audience wants to know about you and what you do. And your 5 pieces of content are based on that. And you just rotate it. And then you'll have a very interesting feed. And every piece of content can then go across Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And you know it's going to look great there as well.
And would you suggest posting the same? So if you have, for example, let's say you recorded the video, which was a tip about whatever it might be for that day, would you suggest posting that across all your content channels in one go? So it's on the same thing on Facebook, that's on the same thing on Instagram, the same things on TikTok, etc., etc.? Or do you sort of stagger it so that one post is going up on Monday on so-and-so, then the same post goes up on a Friday on a different platform? Where do you sit on that side of things?
I think make it easy for yourself. You know, that getting into the nuances of timings and days, you then become a social media expert and you're no longer a real estate agent. So I will get one post, as long as you're posting every single day, Use that same post and dine out on it. Get it across everywhere. The next day is something different. And then you won't lose track. You're not spending hours and hours trying to, figure out where you were and where that went and where this went and how that did. Get it out, do your analytics, see how it performed, improve it next time.
And you mentioned analytics there. What would you be looking for? Would you be looking for a number of impressions on the post, number of likes or comments or shares or DMs off the back of it? What's the sort of the metric you look at to go, that's a good post that's generating results for me, therefore I need to do more of those, or that was a bad post and let's not talk about it again?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, LinkedIn will tell you how certain posts, if your particular posts have done particularly well, it will bounce up on screen. It will feed it to you. This is doing great. So yeah, okay, that's doing great. More of that. You might have different strengths on different platforms. TikTok is a very different platform, but I just think it's important to mix it up. If you're mixing it up, it's going to hit somewhere on one of those platforms. So I think the rule of thumb is cover all of your bases and do a mixture on every single category, and then you're going to hit. Look at your likes, look at your interactions, look at your shares, look at all of it. But a lot of people don't interact with you. It doesn't mean they're not watching. You can get really tied up in analytics, and it's important to understand which posts have done best so you can do more of it. But never think that if you haven't got enough likes that people aren't noticing, they notice. But we're English, we're very reserved. Mm-hmm. We don't always like to press like, we don't always like to comment, and we're scrolling very quickly, and we're not always that generous in lifting people up.
No, sure.
So don't be disheartened by lack of interest or interaction. People are noticing you. Keep going.
Yeah, I had someone messaging me the other day who said to me, "Oh, Chris, I really like your stuff. I listened to your podcast. I read your book, and I follow all your stuff on social media and on YouTube as well." And I was like, "Don't even know who that person is." Like they've done their homework on me, absolutely, but I didn't have a clue. So it's only that sort of like silent audience in the background that you kind of don't know is watching in a non-creepy way.
People are absolutely watching.
So
people are watching.
So let's just to kind of final question for yourself to kind of wrap things up for the podcast. So if you were dropped into an estate agency business today who had very, let's call it old school branding and old school techniques, we're kind of at a sort of a base level, what are sort of the top 3 actions you would take in that estate agency to kind of drag them into the 21st century?
Probably, as you say, you've pinpointed the pain points there for me. I'd be looking at their brand identity. Does it resonate with their market, or has their market grown with them? If they've been there 20 years and they have an aging market, maybe they're still very relevant. If they've got a different demographic moving into the marketplace and their original marketplace have moved on, you have to be relevant. In my brand strategy, again, sorry to keep referring back to that, we talk about color psychology, how your brand can subliminally provide messages to your audience. What are you wearing? Blue is a color of trust. What do you want your business to, your audience, what do you want them to think and feel and associate with you as a brand? And again, speak to them. If your audience wants young, energized, proactive, exciting brand, then that's what you need to make yourself. If you've got maybe an aging population that want a responsible, reliable, steady, trusted brand, think about that. So I would go in, I'd be, again, matchmaking, making sure that the brand is speaking to the audience. But again, first of all, you have to understand who your audience are before you start shaking things up. You can't just go into a company and put your opinions onto them, because your opinions don't matter. You always have to be in service to whoever the client is and matchmake.
I love that. And a brilliant time to wrap things up. Beverley, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been really invaluable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.